Thank you very much, and it's great to be here at an NGO. I say that because I myself work for an NGO, and it's very much the same sort of feeling and culture that there's a large group of people working together for the common good. I work for Citizens Advice, which we run advice agencies, but we've also been doing some international development work because we work through Citizens Advice International, which helps advice agencies start up in particularly in developing countries. I mean, I became interested in international development, I suppose in my early 20s. At least in my early 20s, I first became more aware that there's a world outside our shores which so desperately needs our help. And I became aware of that really through Bosnia, because day after day we saw the dreadful events that took place unfolding in Southeast Europe. And I felt more and more incensed that the West was not really pulling its weight in terms of dealing with the conflict, let alone the humanitarian situation that was on the ground. So it was then after the Bosnian War I signed up to a PhD on the reconstruction of the state in Bosnia, because after the war the state was absolutely decimated, and really the local leaders and the international community had to start again from a blank sheet of paper, and to redesign the state on the basis of the Dayton Agreement. So since then I've been very much interested in international development issues, and like Stuart and Justine, we recognise that in this current political context, it's that international development risks falling down the agenda, and there's a big risk that questions get asked that we see that we get kind of go back to the politics of particularly we saw in the 80s of when there were all sorts of questions being asked about what's the purpose of aid, is it going, why are we doing this, shouldn't we be putting our own national interests first. Now I'm very pleased that the Liberal Democrats really don't take that approach at all, and I very much know that I'm in the right party. And I remember when I realised that I was going to give myself so much more to the party was, in fact, when Martin Dent came to when he was leading the Jubilee campaign back in 1999, came and addressed our conference about signing the party up to the Jubilee campaign, and he got a standing ovation. And so we're very much behind the international development agenda, and when the government's international development bill has been presented now, we have had a debate about whether this is the right way forward to actually legislate on reaching that target of keeping that target of 0.7% of our gross national income going into the Overseas Development Assistance Fund. And we're supporting the government on this. We think actually, despite the questions about whether it's whether one parliament can kind of bind the next parliament, it is so important that we actually make that commitment on a long-term public policy basis, and that we continue to give our full support to the ODA programme. But of course, I mean, there are lots of debates going around about aid, about how you best measure it. And one of the problems is often we don't have enough of a suitable research framework to really kind of grapple with those questions, because we don't always have the data on the ground. And there's a debate about whether we prioritise the sort of inputs into aid or whether we actually judge projects on the basis of outcomes. The difficulty of judging projects on the basis of outcomes is, as you all know, those outcomes may take 10, 20, 30 years or generation to come to fruition. So it's then very difficult to say, well, we have a beneficial outcome here, therefore we should increase the funding to this project. But I do think we generally need to look at the whole aid framework very much in terms of outcomes. And another area we need to look at is the relationship, and we really need to get this right, because certainly my experience when I went to Bosnia, and I turned up in Bosnia really with nothing else than a letter from my supervisor saying, this is a PhD student, please let him into wherever. But what I saw there, back in the mid-90s was the agencies on the ground were often just passing the buck between each other, particularly the civil agencies and the military agencies, without any kind of coordinated framework for sort of who was doing what and who was taking responsibility for particular sectors. And that's the kind of paradigm that we often see across different aid programs, particularly where it's related to conflict resolution and to peacekeeping. I see the orange light, and I hope we can kind of debate these questions further. But I think these are the questions we actually debated in our conference last week. We have a paper out on it called that's for consultation. So please put a response in if you're interested. And just say I'm very much engaged in this debate, and I very much look forward to talking to you later. Thank you.